Hey, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Girl, Is That Legal? So, today we're going to be talking about the hot mess of a case that is Blac Chyna versus the Kardashians. So, I'm going to give people a chance to come on in. So, I'm going to run the countdown and then we're going to get started. All right, thanks for coming back. All right, we're going to let people come on in and join us. Um, there we go. Hey, Confessions, I see you. Hey, guys. And feel free to drop in any questions that you have there. So, today, what I'm going to cover, let me just adjust my camera a slight tad. So, I like to come with receipts. So, today, what I have for you is both the jury form as well as a form that shows what exactly was it that Blac Chyna was suing for in the first place. So, we're going to go over what did she really sue for in the first place? Because there's a lot of myths out there. I hear a lot of people talk about, oh, it was breach of contract. It was breach of contract. No, y'all, it was never breach of contract. Because some people were saying that because Blac Chyna didn't have a signature on the contract, that, oh, she could never win for breach of contract. She was never suing for breach of contract in the first place. So we've got that. Can y'all hear me okay? This is a new mic that I'm trying out. So let me know if you can hear me all right. Here, let me scoot it closer. Yeah. She was suing for defamation. Yep. So we're going to go into what was she actually suing for with receipts. And then we're going to go into why this hot mess of a case did not go in her favor for $100 million. We're also going to talk about whether or not Blac Chyna could be on the hook for millions for attorney's fees, either for herself or for the Kardashians, and what next. All right. So here we go. Let's start with what is it she was actually suing for? All right. So here we go. Let's share with you. Okay. So this is a document. This is basically a document that's showing, here we go. Let me make it bigger. All right. So this is a document. It is the final ruling that the judge made on which items in her petition she could actually sue for. So long story short, we're going to go to it. So it was three main things that she wanted to sue for. There was a bunch initially in there. Now, first, let me tell you this. First, she combined her suit against the Kardashians as well as Rob for the revenge porn. So all of that was in one suit. But then the court separated it out. So they made Rob and his situation, the revenge porn, a separate lawsuit and let her continue against the sisters. Now, here, the moving parties, the defendants here, basically in this motion, what they're trying to do is kick out as many of the claims against them as possible. Now, they were successful on some, lost on the other. The end of the day, the claims that stayed were defamation and what's called intentional interference with contract. So that's here. Let's see, 12 cause of action, intentional interference with contractual relation, as well as, here's the important one that also is there. The other one is intentional interference with a prospective economic relationship. So what that means is, if you're claiming, this is, even if I don't already have a contract with the E Entertainment, you guys are over here effing up my opportunity to even get one. So family, mind your business, leave my business alone. That's basically what they're saying here. So to start, and then of course we know the defamation. Now they were able to get this other claim kicked out, which is unfair business practices. China was basically trying to say that what the Kardashians did was unfair, because effectively what they did was they got season 2 of Rob and China nixed And instead, The Life of Kylie got Kylie a show. All right. Keep that in mind. The fact that Rob and Chyna was canceled, and they didn't even have A Life of Kylie in mind, but they gave Kylie a show in place of Rob and Chyna season 2. Keep that in mind when we talk about the jury forum, which we're going to get to next. So going into it, okay, with the intentional, I want to make sure you guys understand what intentional interference with contract is. Let me pull out. Yes, somebody asked, is her lawyer filing for an appeal? Absolutely. At this point, you absolutely kind of like have to file for an appeal. And that is because of the attorney's fees that are involved. And we'll talk about that. So the first thing that she filed for, I want to make sure y'all understand, intentional interference with contractual relations, basically interference with my contract. So what you cannot do under the law, basically what it means is in California, to prevail on this, you have to show that that there was a valid contract in existence between the plaintiff and another party. Listen, that actually does not have to be a signed contract. If the contract is being performed, that's good enough. Here, Blac Chyna actually already started filming for season 2. They even, at the end of season 1, they even made a statement that said, stay tuned for season 2. So for many, that would be sufficient to say, hey, Chyna already had a deal for season 2 that the family interfered with to get it next. Now, it also requires the defendant has to know about the contract, which of course they did. Defendant has to intentionally perform actions, it says, designed to induce a breach or a disruption of that contract. Well, the sisters did just that, okay? But here's the thing. The sisters were claiming, oh, we weren't trying to get her show canceled. We were concerned about our brother's safety because Chyna was abusing his big old self. Okay. However, here's the problem with that. They never called the police. They never did anything to interfere. They didn't give any indications that they were truly scared of his safety. But here, what's important is that the defendants have to act in a way to induce a breach of the relationship. Now, what was interesting here is they have actual, I'm like hot and sweaty. Sorry about that. What they did was there are actual emails from Chloe and the sisters and the mom, but particularly Chloe and Kylie, that are saying, if you continue with the Rob and Chyna show, I'm not going to film on the Kardashians. What? Specifically, they said, if you keep filming Rob and Chyna, I will not do the next season on the Kardashians. And they even threatened to not continue on the E! Network. Now, I don't know what year they were in their contract, but we know today they're on Hulu. So at any given time, they could have the whole family taken their show to another network. And that's exactly what they threatened. They threatened to leave the network if the network didn't pull the show. That is stereotypical. That is, whenever you learn this concept in law school, that's the exact example of interference with someone's contract. And more specifically, let me zoom in on that. Let's go back. If you interfere in their contract and then cause an actual breach and disruption in the contract, that results in damage. So what she had ultimate issues with was the damages part and showing damages. And that was in part because she hadn't filed her taxes in a long time. But in reality, that actually should not have impacted the jury. And here's why here. So the taxes are more so in the past what you've made. But here, she had a clear contract that was submitted into evidence that said for every episode, I believe it was $92,000, that she got $92,000 for each episode. She had a deal with MAC. MAC was going to pay her, MAC, the makeup company, $12,500 per post. And she was to do 20 posts. And she was to have a number of club appearances like Vegas and different clubs that she was going to host, where she was going to make $20,000 per club appearance. This was if and only if she got Blac Chyna season 2. When Blac Chyna season 2 was pulled, her MAC contract was pulled. And of course, she did not earn the $92,000 or the $90,000 per episode. So even if she didn't file her taxes, it's very clear that those at a minimum could be seen as her damages. Let's say it was an 8 to 10 episode show, 10 episodes, 90,000 a piece. That would be 300K. You know, yeah, you may need to pay taxes from that, but it doesn't change the fact that her income would have been 90K an episode for that, plus MAC, plus her club appearances. All right. All right. And then secondly, I wanted to just make sure you guys saw that they also were, that Chyna was also suing for interference with a prospective contract. That was really smart. So what that does is that covers her in the event that the jury did not find that she had a valid contract that covered season 2, because she had one for season 1. There's no doubt about that. She had a contract for season 1. In the event the jury found, oh, she only had a season 1 contract, they could still find that she won or that she's entitled to something because they interfered with her ability to get season 2, right? And with season 2, obviously that is a prospective contract if you feel she hadn't already signed the contract. Now, there's a little discrepancies in the facts and stuff, because one of the things that was at issue was there was a contract extension that Chyna's name was on it, but Chyna argued like that she doesn't recall ever signing it or that she didn't sign it. So that was super important because that contract, it was a contract extension. That one implied that the network had not firmly decided whether there'd be a season 2. Somebody asked, so threatening to remove yourself from something if one entity continues with another is grounds for defamation. No, that's not the defamation. That part is the intentional interference with contract. So intentional interference contract was basically, well, Justin's on here. Justin, in many other states, they call it tortious interference, but in California, they call it intentional interference with contract. Either way, it means you're over here minding my business. I have a contract with these people to have a show, but you tell these people if they give me my show, you are not going to perform in your show on their network. So therefore, they had to pick. And who do you think they're going to pick? If it's, I'm going to do the Kardashian show or Blac Chyna, even though Blac Chyna was number 1, at that time, the Kardashians brought them way more money. So it was no question there. So let's go on to defamation. Now, with defamation, here's the interesting thing about defamation. And then I'm going to show you the jury form because this is a whole hot mess. All right. So what a lot of people don't realize about defamation is that defamation is basically saying something that's untrue, but that's untrue about someone else. However, if it is substantially true, which is the issue, one of the issues here, or if you reasonably believe that it is true, even if it's not considered defamation. So that was the issue here. So the issue here, and I'll pull up the jury verdict form. So the issue here was that the sisters are all relying on what they say Rob told them Chyna did to them, that Chyna beat him up, that she put a gun to his head, that she tried to strangle him with her cell phone cord, all of those things. Now, here's the thing. Even though if those things were a bold-faced lie, as long as the girls reasonably believed that they were true, then it's not defamation. And they repeat it, it's not defamation. So literally, if someone tells you, so let's say in the Cardi B situation with Tasha K, if someone came to Tasha K and was like, Tasha K, I am a nurse in her doctor's office. Cardi B really did have chlamydia. I'm telling you, she had chlamydia. And Tasha K goes on her show and says it. Even though it was a bold-faced lie, Tasha K would have been just fine because it would be reasonable to rely on the nurse of her doctor to think she has chlamydia. However, but once Cardi B herself was like, I don't have chlamydia, and Tasha K kept saying it, that's when the problem arose. And that is why Cardi B was actually successful with defamation. So here, let me make it bigger. Y'all, this is the jury firm. Oh. So this is ultimately why the case was a hot mess and why Blac Chyna didn't have no chance. Y'all, this is the jury form, which means this is the sheet that the jury has to complete in order to find that she succeeds. This thing was way too long. This thing had 70 questions, y'all. 70 questions. Let me explain what jury form is. Okay, so the harder and more complicated a jury form is, the harder and more complicated a jury form is, the less likely is that somebody's going to prevail. And somebody wrote, the only part I didn't understand was how Kylie could testify what Tigga told her without it being considered hearsay. Everything else made sense. Great question. So I'm going to answer that one about hearsay before I explain the problems with the jury form. So here's the thing about defamation. Defamation is literally the only kind of case where hearsay can be admitted over and over again and it not be a problem. Now, hearsay is an out-of-court statement made and put into court to prove the fact of the matter, right? Basically, an out-of-court statement that's made as truth. So if I tell you, my mom said she saw Stephen, my mom said she saw Rob slap Blac Chyna. Okay, I cannot say that in court, right? Because I can't tell you what my mom said, because Blac Chyna will never have a chance to confront my mom. She's not there. And I'm submitting it as an example of proof that Blac Chyna really hit him. Okay, that's the problem. Now, the reason it's admissible in defamation is because defamation is not just about the truth. It's about whether somebody reasonably believed something was true. Okay. So here, the issue was that, for example, Kylie repeated the statement that Blac Chyna beats Rob. She repeated that. So one of the questions is, Kylie, why do you believe that Blac Chyna beat Rob? She's able to say, because Rob said Blac Chyna beat me. That's hearsay, but it's admissible because it speaks to why her belief of the beating is reasonable. Okay. So the reason you can admit in hearsay in a defamation case is because the issue it speaks to is what makes her believe that thing, what makes it reasonable for her to believe that that thing is true, whether it is or not. And so you're able to say, basically you're saying where you got that information. So you can even say, oh, well, 10 people told me that Chyna slapped my brother. My mom told me that, my sister, my mama's boyfriend. All of those things would usually be hearsay. But since in a defamation case, part of the question is, all right, well, if it's not true, right, then the question is, was it reasonable for you to think it was true, right? So if it's not true, because truth is always a defense to defamation, but if it's not true, was it reasonable for you to think it's true? So the more people that you hear it from, the more reliable your sources are, the more reasonable it is for you to believe it's true. Can someone help the appeal and get rich and famous? Help the appeal, as in like an attorney? Clarify that one for me. All right, so that kind of sums up defamation. So here, defamation here was really supported. She wasn't able to win on the defamation, and here's why. We're going to go through the jury form. That basically with the defamation, she wasn't able to win on them because, one, it was substantially true in most of the situations, or two, the jury found that it was reasonable for her to, for each of the defendants to think that what they were saying is true. So for example, let's start at the top. Truth and common interest. So the first question, so these are the actual questions the jury had to answer and find in Blac Chyna's favor in order to give her some money. So one of the first ones was, this is related to Kris Jenner. Was Kris Jenner's statement on these text messages to Alice O'Neill, Alice O'Neill's an executive, were they true or substantially true? And the statement was, She beat the S out of Rob's face. They said, no, that's not true or substantially true. But what about the statement, she beat the S out of him? Yes, that was considered substantially true. All right, so then they answered that. They had to go to the next question, which is, did Kris Jenner have reasonable grounds to believe the truth of those two statements? She got it from her son. And the answer was yes to both of those, right? Okay, so because of that, it then goes down to the next questions, which is, here's what's interesting. So then you have to, even if something was like, even those types of things, Kris would be protected if she was doing it to protect her economic interests. That's actually a defense. So, but what was interesting here is the jury said, did Kris Jenner act reasonably and in good faith to protect her own economic interests? They said no. They said no. They did not think that she did, yet they still found in favor of Kris. And here with the justification, they even said, were Kris Jenner's actions justified regarding Blac Chyna and her relationship with E? They still said no. They still said no. But watch this. Basically, we're going to go through. And then with the defamation, they didn't even go to the rest of the defamation because they found that her statements were true or substantially true. So they don't even go through the rest of it. But yet they found that she wasn't justified and she did not behave in good faith. So going into with Kris, here's what I found interesting. So then they asked with Kris and the intentional messing with Chyna's contract, they found, did Kris Jenner's conduct prevent performance? Sorry, going up here. Was there a contract? Yes. Did Kris Jenner know about the contract? Yes. But then they said, no, Kris Jenner's conduct did not prevent Chyna from performing. Or make her performance more expensive or difficult. And basically throughout this is one of the reasons why the jury had trouble finding in favor of Chyna for the contract interference. Basically, they largely didn't feel like, even though the family meddled, they felt like it still didn't make it difficult or more expensive for Chyna to do the show. That's absurd because the email specifically said that if you do the show with Blac Chyna and Rob, a second season, we are pulling out of the Kardashians. Here we go. And then even here, so this is another one. This is for Kim. Was Kim justified in her actions against Chyna? They said no, she was not justified. And did Kim act in good faith to protect her own economic interests? They said no, she did not act in good faith, meaning she was deliberately messing with this lady's contract. And then did her contract prevent or make the performance more expensive or difficult? No. So just going through here, that was basically what they said for each of the sisters. And they found out, they said, no, they weren't justified, yet no, they're claiming that it didn't make it more difficult. Now, here's the thing. So let's pull it on out. Oh, I did find it interesting that they said Kylie Jenner was lying. Here it is. Kylie's. Here we go. So this one is Kylie's. It says, was Kylie's statement in her email that said, talking about Chyna will proceed with using and physically abusing my brother. Was it true or substantially true? They said no. And they said, did she have reasonable grounds to believe that it was true? And they said yes. And then they also said, they asked, did Kylie act to protect her own economic interests? Yes. But did she act reasonably in good faith? No. And were her actions justified with respect to the network? They said no. So keep going all the way through. So to back it out, and then so basically to back it on out, they said they made sure that Chyna had no chance. So basically, you guys see how long and how complicated this stupid form is, right? At the end of the day, the more complicated your form is, the less likely it is that the plaintiff's going to be able to win because it's just too complicated. And in the end, y'all, here's the kicker. This is the main question that killed it for the sisters, which is this. All right, so let's see. These are questions about Kylie. It went through, it found that Kylie, it actually found that her conduct did make Chyna's performance more expensive. It found that Kylie did intend to disrupt the contract. And it found that her conduct was not a substantial factor. So basically, all in all, no matter what happens, if what this person did is not a big deal, basically, if it isn't a substantial factor in causing Blac Chyna to lose money, then even if she did everything, the jury can't give her any money. So the attorney for the Kardashians did a really great job. He did a really great job because he made this thing so complicated that you damn near have to be a rocket scientist to give Chyna any money. Somebody said, had she started with the defamation case and won, would it have made a difference in this case? That is a great question. So the answer is, but not really, because they're different. They're totally different claims. But here's the problem. The defamation case was actually the harder case because of the fact that with defamation, you just have to show that even if something was a lie, that the person reasonably believed the lie. And they were able to show that without question. The truth of the matter is, if you were on a jury and a sister takes the stand and said, my brother told me his girlfriend was beating his butt, okay, then it would be very easy for a jury to believe that you reasonably believed it. And that's what happened. Somebody said their lawyer definitely knew what to do. I see why she lost. Right. So with defamation, a lot of people think it's all about whether something's true. It's not. One, it just needs to be substantially true. So for example, she didn't even need to be, beating him every day. She could have hit him one time, and that could be considered substantially true. And more than that, the sisters just had to reasonably believe that he was doing this stuff. But then lastly, the main reason why, even when they found, for example, they found that Kylie did the stuff, that she wasn't acting in good faith, that she did interfere, and that she didn't act in good faith, basically all things they had to find. The problem was the word substantial factor. And that's where I believe that they lost big time. So basically, what substantial factor means in any given lawsuit where you're asking for money, if you can't show that what this person did or these actions basically created the result. So here, if you can't show that what Kylie did is what resulted in the E! Network not renewing the show, then you can't win. But here's the thing. Substantial factor was never defined anywhere. I believe that in the end, they should have defined what substantial factor is, because although they may have found that Kylie individually wasn't a substantial factor, or Khloe wasn't, or the mama wasn't, if you put all of them together, you don't have a Kardashian show. That meaning they're not coming back for another season. So if you put it all together, hell yeah, they're a substantial factor, because that means that the network is going to lose their number one show. But here, they never define what a substantial factor is. Look at question 67. All it says is, was Kylie Jenner's conduct a substantial factor in causing harm to Angela? All right. But I bet if you ask that jury to consider all of the family's conduct together, they'd be like, oh, well, heck yes. Because the network in the end did not want to piss the family off. There's no doubt about that. But here you had all of these complications. It was a really complicated case. And when you got this kind of complicated case and you got just Blac Chyna, you got one attorney against the team of the Kardashians, it's really tough. Also, I got a number of questions about attorney's fees. So in the chat, I want to see if anyone put a thumbs up if you feel like Blac Chyna may owe some attorney's fees, either to her own lawyer or to the Kardashians. I'm gonna take a step. That's the hard part about these kind of cases. They are expensive in multiple ways. So here's the thing. I've seen like multiple bloggers make comments about them, talk about the anti-slap law. There's a law where if you lose a defamation case, then you're liable for attorney's fees. So here's the thing. No. Luckily, no, not here. Even though this was defamation, it was also interference with contracts, so tortious interference. Basically, so as a result, Chyna's responsible for her lawyer's fees and the Kardashians are responsible for hers. There are very few instances where you can sue somebody for attorney's fees. One of them would be breach of contract, but that was not a claim here. Nobody won on that claim. So attorney's fees are not going to be owed to anyone. But here's the thing. Blac Chyna also likely won't owe her own attorney. And the reason for that is it appears the attorney took her case on not hourly, but contingency. Okay. Meaning that attorney was going to get a percentage of whatever she recovered for Blac Chyna. So y'all, I'm a contingency fee attorney. When I do my wrongful death, my products liability, those kind of cases, I take them on contingency. Y'all, this is why contingency fee lawyers request 33 and a third or 40% because we take all that risk. So this case has been pending since 2017. Okay, for 5 years. The lady has not made a dime and won't. Okay. So that's really important to note. So if you got a risky case, you definitely might want to see if you can find a contingency fee lawyer. That way you don't owe anything. She doesn't even owe like the case costs. So like depositions, all that stuff was super expensive. Luckily, she doesn't owe any of that. Somebody said her own, if anything, but not the Kardashians. Yeah, somebody said they just got her good, period. Yeah, it was rough. But I mean, at the end of the day, what I want to make clear is she had a strong case. She actually did have strong facts. She had emails sitting there that from Khloe Kardashian to the network, specifically saying, if you keep filming with Rob and Chyna and give them a season 2, I'm not coming back to the network. I'm not doing the Kardashians. I'm not doing another season of our show. That is exactly what interference with contract is. It's not defamation, it's interference with contract. So in the end, she had a strong interference with contract claim, but I believe the jury instructions were way too complicated so that the average jury, even though they found that those girls interfered with the contract, they just found that it wasn't necessarily substantial, or they found that in some instances that whatever the sister did wasn't going to make performance of the contract more expensive. Long story short, the questions were just too complicated. And in the end, the lawyers agree on the jury form. Either they agree or they argue about it, submit it to the judge, and the judge decides. So here on her appeal, her strongest grounds are going to be that stupid jury form was way too complicated. Not to mention the fact that they didn't even get to evaluate Kim Kardashian and whether or not her statements were defamatory. But I think we can definitely see here she wouldn't have won on the statements that Kim made either, because one, she didn't clearly identify what statements Kim made that were defamatory. You have to do that in defamation. She was not able to pinpoint a specific statement that Kim made. But secondly, even if she does pinpoint it, the problem is going to be that Kim's going to be able to say, well, I'm sorry, even if it was false, I reasonably believe my brother was telling me the truth. In which case, if the brother is a lie, and this is why it's super important that they separated the case, sued the sisters now, and she's suing the brother later, is because now she can point to the brother and say, look, all your sisters got on the stand and said you lied to them and claimed that I beat you and I never did. So she can run up and get as much as she can off the brother. So someone else said, I thought she had a really good case, but the interference was the nail in the coffin. No way was the network going to choose Chyna over the Kardashians. Right. Somebody said, would you advise Chyna to have taken the initial settlement of $20 million and not go to trial? Woo, that's a good question. Hold on. Was it 20? Oh, little baby, if you're still in the chat, let me know, where did you hear 20 at? If it was 20, absolutely. Let me lean in. Absolutely. Oh, that looked nasty, but sorry. I definitely would have said if she had a 20 million offer. I was told, or I had heard, that she only had an offer of like 300,000. And to be honest, that's too low to even entertain. 300. I think the 300 is probably more in line, because the problem with the 300K offer when you are having a contingency fee case is that 40% of that goes to your lawyer, and then the lawyer gets their expenses, and then you get what's left over. Here, no doubt, those expenses for this case are probably around 100K. So entertaining $100,000, a $300,000 settlement is like actually insulting, which is what I was told that she was offered. But if it was 20, I absolutely. And the reason you entertain a 20 is because even if she would have won at this trial, whatever she would have won, they would have appealed it. So that ties up the money and the likelihood of you getting it. Whereas with a settlement, they have to agree to a payment schedule, a payment plan. If they miss even one payment by a day, you have the right to go back to court and sue them and, go for everything all over again. So settlements are really valuable because you're not running the risk of an appeal and waiting forever for your money. But I don't believe that those girls would have given 20 million. I think that would have been too much of right. Somebody said I definitely would have took that. I definitely think they probably offered the 300K. Somebody said, I've been hearing 300 settlement, but she decided to go to trial and take a stab at the 300 million. Cause see, the thing is, I could definitely see her getting gassed up. See, first of all, no offense, but I've had clients like Chyna before. And one of the biggest challenges that I face is you're getting gassed up by friends who don't know the law, don't know business. And they're like, yeah, girl, go get that money, and have no idea the risks that are involved, right? Mm-hmm. And especially if Tokyo Tony would have definitely told her to reject the 20. Because Tokyo Tony would have been like, no, you want to take their house, you want to take their back alleyway, you want to take their garage. And I can't blame her. I cannot blame her. But nah, I definitely don't think. Yeah, if 20 million, I would have taken it. I would have smiled. I would have taken photos at a family reunion, all of that. Because for the Kardashians, image is so important. And a lot of what came out is that they're nasty, that they're like nasty people, not as in dirty, but as in what they did was trifling. Like, I didn't know that Kylie was Chyna and Tigga's babysitter until this. Like, we heard certain things, but I didn't know that that was the truth. Like, she admitted, like, she was their babysitter. Like, girl, you are literally the nanny. You are the help, and you are sleeping with Chyna's fiance. Like, I think those are a lot of the types of facts that they would have paid good money to hide. So, a substantial settlement. I think she probably could have gotten at least 1 million out of a pre settlement negotiation. And I think a large part of that would have been she would have been able to count the episodes, 90K per episode that she would have missed, etc. There's always a risk to jury not seeing it in your favor. Yep. And not believing you deserve 20 million. Well, the minute that I knew my client hadn't filed taxes in 5 years, I'd be like, ma'am, come get this before the IRS does. Okay. I'm surprised the IRS hadn't already skedaddled up on this, because they love to come collect against, celebrities. So that's it. So I want to see if there was anything else that I wanted to include with the jury instructions, contract extension. I think that was basically it. Oh, and on another one, I will also try to cover the trademark issues. I'm going to bring one of my friends who's also a trademark expert and talk about the trademark issue. We discovered in this case that they actually went and, without informing Chyna or asking her permission or any of that, they trademarked the name Dream Kardashian. And of course, Chyna took offense to that. But the truth of the matter is they did it with Rob's permission and consent, Rob is like lazy and incapable of anything useful. So Rob wasn't going to do it. And we'll talk about like what happens when that happens if your kid has if your kid does have a trademark. How does that work? Especially where it's two different parents. Do you split that money? How? I don't know. We'll cover that. But thanks for joining us. Catch us on the replay. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe on the actual YouTube channel so I can get my views up of Girl Is That Legal on YouTube. Thank you.